Hey folks, it's Brian. I've got a video for what would be Far Horizons, but isn't, because we're not playing Far Horizons anymore, we're playing Elderath. If you saw my last Far Horizons video, our characters went through a gate, woke up in an alien place, and our memories of our former selves drifted away, and the memories of our new selves became more evident. So Dylan no longer remembers being Dylan. He remembers being Westland. They call him West for short. And Westland has family in Zig, which is the capital far to the north across the bay. And he was squired to a knight of Sir Michael. And Sir Michael is the champion of the Lady of Bloodstone, or the Lady Bloodstone, who is the local noble in the southern colonies. That is the where we are. The powers to be, that kind of stuff. The Lords of Bloodstone manage everything. And so the capital of the southern colony is Telgar. And so that's where Wes lives. And Wes, so like I said, was squire to a knight. The knight had his area of responsibility covered Hamlet. And so Wes got to know a handful of, nearly all the people of Hamlet. And the other PCs are actually from Hamlet, and so I got to know them. As I was squiring, though, I was identified by the prior master of the College of Wizardry in Telgar, the capital where I live. And he pulled some strings, and I was transferred to, or was relieved of my squire responsibilities and sent to the college to learn magic. So essentially, Wes is a fighter magic user. Also, because of other connections, Wes got access to a fencing master in Telgar, and that's a unique skill. So it's not readily available to most people. So doing this whole character creation thing, we had 2 weeks to do this, and even after playing last night, there's some changes I want to make. And Bruce understands that, and he's told us, as we're playing, we need to make changes. As long as it hadn't had a negative effect, we can increase the positive, that kind of thing. Excuse me. So, with Wes, we had 750 percentage points to spread throughout the character sheet. And so I took a third of that and did it to the knightly skills. And we pulled the Pendragon book and looked at, okay, these are the knightly skills. And so I marked all those in red, and okay, I have to have skill points in all of those skills because that's trained as a squire. That happens with, right? And I took a third and applied those to magic skills. So there's certain magic lists, and then we have meditation as a magic skill. So that's where I split up those points. Now, because Bruce runs a high magic world, we're using the spell lists as the spells run by the Runequest 3 engine, and that runs into issues. We ran into a couple when we were doing the mentalism stuff, psionics, back in the Far Horizons campaign, and run into even more, at least with the essence lists here in Elderath. Now, a little bit about Elderath and Bruce's game world. When I was in high school, Bruce and Mike and Pete and shoot, there's a couple other guys were a year ahead of me. And so during high school, I didn't play games with them, but I went to college with them, and while I was at college, we played D&D, a lot of D&D, practically every night. Now, Mike was our GM most of the time then, and he kind of took me under my wing, made sure I got all my homework done before we played, but we played practically every night. It was a lot of fun. And it's kind of, and it is a high fantasy world. And so, and Bruce and Mike's worlds are kind of intermingled. And that I believe Mike's world is also Elderath. And there's some funky things about it. It's a toroid. The moon goes up and down through the middle and all that kind of stuff. So, played a lot in Mike's world, but I've also played in Bruce's world and his Elderath. And so I know there's this high fantasy world out there that's, just outside of the realm of normal people living and doing their daily lives. We don't have that much kind of impact. Now, some of the stuff we've already seen, Duke Kirk has got Griffin Riders. That's kind of high fantasy kind of stuff, right? And I know somewhere in this world is a mountain range that's shaped kind of like a hand, and it's slowly moving forward. Things that I ran into Bruce's world previously, I know are probably out there somewhere. And so I know there's this high fantasy world out there. So this will be kind of fun. When we first did the transition, though, I was really bummed. I really liked Dylan. I liked where we were going. I liked what was happening. I liked playing a fantasy game because I run RQG, Runequest Role Playing in Glorantha, alternating weekends. So I get my fantasy that way. So I was, a little bummed out. But as we did this character creation, I got more and more into Wes. Actually pretty excited about playing this game. It should be a lot of fun. Okay, this video is going to be a character creation and campaign stuff. We'll get into the actual adventure in another campaign because I know this is going to go way too long. No campaign, another video. So, as I was squired, I went through Hamlet, got to meet everybody there. And I just finished the College of Wizardry, and so I got free time, right? So I head back to Hamlet to visit with my old friends. Okay, so in Hamlet, the other PCs, the other three, are locals. Two of them were orphaned from goblin raids from about 9 years ago. And one of them grew up with a church, it's a cleric. The other grew up with kind of disappeared from town and grew up with a recluse, a hermit. There we go. Grew up with a hermit. And as I understand his characters we were playing through, he's kind of like, well, he is a monk. He fights with his hands and feet and with a staff. And he's got certain spells as well, which I believe in spell law are the monk list, that kind of thing. I haven't really dug into it, but he did a couple of things that makes me think that. So anyway, from their various things, they've come back to Hamlet. The third guy had gotten, the cleric is Raymond, and the monk is Toth. The third guy, Alexander, got in trouble with the law, and the local magistrate, which I believe was either Rufus or Burns here in Hamlet, gave him an option. Hey, we're going to send you to Telgard prison, or you can join the military and give yourself a chance to straighten out your life. So he agrees to join the military. He goes to Telgard, gets run to the militia. He ends up joining Duke Kirk's Rangers. So he is a ranger thief. He initially wanted to be like a barbarian kind of guy, but his size ended up rolling fairly low. And so he decided to be, a sneaky thief kind of guy. So we kept our intelligence and our power from Far Horizons, but we rolled new strength, constitution, size, dexterity, and appearance. as I went through the character creation process, Wes seemed more and more to me like a playboy, and he's got access to a fair amount of financing, and so money doesn't really mean much to him. So I can see him, um, flirting with lots of people. So he's got some fast talk and orate. I can see him uh, tipping probably heavily practically everybody, that kind of thing. So, and since, this is a medieval type world, there's not really a lot of cash around. It's not a cash economy, it's a service economy. That's the mindset. Um, okay, so another factor of Wes's background gave him access to a fencing master, and fencing is a unique skill. Not everybody gets access to that. So as we're fleshing through the fencing skill, min-maxing, if you want to call it that. Fencing with sword skill is the same as riding with lance skill or attacking from a horse, right? When you're attacking from a horse, your skill is limited by the lower of the two skills, riding or your weapon skill. So as a squire, I matched up my riding with my lance. They're both at like 55. And then I've got a handful of weapon skills. I got shield, I've got my sword attack, um, some dagger, um, some spear, and then a handful of other knightly skills, right? So a third of my points went to all that kind of stuff, and a third went to my magic skills, which is my 4 lists, because I'm given an open list, a closed list, and 2 base lists. So I've got magical shielding, protecting me from elemental attacks. I've got spirit mastery, I think is what it's called, which allows me to do things like sleep and confusion and charm and hold person and that kind of stuff. And then my 2 base lists are light law and wind law, which allows me to throw shock bolts and some wind stuff. I don't remember the wind stuff very much. We didn't use that list at all last night because Bruce put the lists out on our personal Google files, and he had given me the wrong list, so I didn't have the wind up at all. But I know down there's this thing called Shocking Cloud, and there's probably some kind of a wind dart kind of thing as well, that kind of stuff. So I had a third just general stuff, right? And so as I'm building my guy out, I find out, okay, I have access to this fencing skill. Okay, so I don't really want my sword skill to be above my fencing skill because I want to maximize that out. And I had to shuffle some points around. We were given 1 skill at 7. We were able to give points to skills so that 1 was a high of 75, 2 a high of 65, 4 a high of 55. Everything else had to be 50 or less. That's because we're first level. And so my 75 was actually my meditation, one of my magic skills. And then I had a 65, I think it was my sword, and a 65 on one of my spell lists, and I kind of divvied that out back and forth. But then I got this new fencing skill, which doesn't have anything in it. So I've got to pull stuff back and down and around, and I applied that. So my riding and lance are, I believe, 55. My sword attack, sword parry, fencing, shield parry are all at 45. And I also picked up left-handed dagger. And the reason I did that is not so I can parry the dagger because, again, hit points, daggers don't have a lot, right? But it turns out that because my strength is only 10, and so I got made fun of as being a squire to a knight, and all these other squires are like strength 13 using war swords, which are equivalent of a Runequest 3 bastard sword. That my mother sent me a matching set, rapier and dagger with our household arms on it, that kind of thing. And they're steel. Now, steel in Bruce's world is similar to the old Runequest, Bronze Age, and Iron, right? Iron had a half again as many armor points. And so steel weapons have half, we're doing iron here, but steel has half again as many armor points. But they're also considered +1, or at least my set is considered +1. So they do extra damage, and they're balanced, so they're more easy to hit with. So I can do this. And then we learn as we're working out this whole fencing skill thing, there's essentially two effects of fencing skill, and they're both defensive. The first is if you do a successful parry against a successful attack, normal the same success level, then instead of the weapon, my weapon, the defensive weapon, absorbing the damage points, it dispersion is the word, deflects those points. Now, if a point does get through, it does come through to me. So the rapier, being steel, has 12 armor points. So if I do a successful parry against a normal attack, 13 points of damage, 1 point comes through me, nothing goes to the sword. So that's going to save the rapier bit, and does make some sense for maybe a dagger as well. But I'll just do it. I'm using the dagger as an offhand attack. It's an extra attack. It's +3 strike ranks later. So that's what I'm doing. Attack, parry, attack, that kind of thing. So the second effect on the fencing skill is that if my success on the parry is a higher success level than the success of the attack, and it starts at special, a failed attack against a normal parry. Ooh, I should ask. That might apply. If a failed attack against a successful parry should give me this riposte effect as well. Now that I think about it, I get a riposte, which is a free attack. Now, it's written up as the next strike rank, and he actually writes it that if the attack of the parry happened on 10, we only have 10 segments. If it happens on 10, then the attack actually occurs on 1 the next round, but it's not count as an attack during that round because multiple attacks, multiple parries give you the -20 deal, right? I'm going to talk to him about that the parry turns into an attack. It should happen at the time of the parry. Because that will actually affect my dagger attackers. My dagger attack is 3 strike ranks later, or segments later, and my normal parry attack is on segment 7. So I do 7 and 10. But if I do 7, 8, then it's 11. That kind of thing. So that's how the fencing worked out. Now, playing last night, it occurred to me that since all of these fencing effects are on parries, I need to make sure my parry is equivalent to my fencing skill, but my attack skill can actually be higher, and I'll be able to take advantage of that higher skill because I don't have to worry about fencing on the attack. So I'm going to have to go through and reshuffle some of my skills again, and maybe my sword attack will go up to 75. We'll have to see about that. What else? Oh, spells. We talked about the spell lists. I'm not going to go into detail on some of the issues we had with the spells, but because we're merging spell law, which has levels and other stuff, with Runequest 3, which doesn't, and a level can equate to various aspects of Runequest 3, that it got to be kind of a mess. We had to talk through. I cast sleep once. Okay, cast like 4 times. I cast sleep, and then we had to talk through all this whole, okay, what does 5 levels really mean? What's the effects? Because Wes would understand that I can affect up to 5 normal guys with this spell. 5 Wesses would have to save, and it wasn't power versus power, and I think it really should be. But they did a resistance. I guess it's just a straight their own stat roll kind of thing. But there are other spells in that list that Bruce saw as being, power versus power. So I've still got some ways of increasing my own power. Pardon me. So that's how that went. Still kind of messy. Not sure I'm necessarily happy with it. But that's how it went. So I guess we'll see how well my new modifications to Wes is going to go as I discuss this out and the value of meditation, because meditation does not seem to be of any value to the spells that we have. And we'll see how that goes. Happy gaming.